So, as I was saying, I've turned a bit into a sort of hamster on the side sort of channel, and currently I'm looking into getting a new hamster. Now, this should happen around after this video comes out and you see it. It's doing in different parts, but the first part was doing some research and deciding the best thing for my new little friend, for bringing them home to make it less stressful, the first steps I should take, and to make it a good experience all around for both of us. So here's some of what I learned and some things that I put together before they were even here. The first thing I made sure to do was a ton of research. I know this maybe sounds almost excessive and you think, oh, it's a hamster. But believe it or not, first, I definitely believe that any animal that you take into your care is now your responsibility, and you should do the best by them and take care of them no matter the size. But also, hamsters are labeled a beginner's pet, and people tend to forget that they actually need a lot of care. I even myself feel like maybe it's not always the best for kids to have hamsters if there isn't going to be an adult that helps take care of them and looks into their care, because they do genuinely need a decent amount of care and have a lot of certain things that they need. So I filled out this book on some ideas, well, not fill it out, but I've got its tabs. I've worked things out, things based on eating habits, the type of pet they are, just about them, their cages, and things like that. And I think that's really helped me to move forward to make sure I have the right things for them set up going forward. The second thing I made sure to do was set up a cage ahead of time. I found in the past, otherwise you end up having to, if you don't have a cage already or a tank or whatever you use, you end up just leaving them in the box or the carrier, and they're just kind of stressed out. And the best thing I can imagine is just taking them straight home. It's already stressful, and then putting them in their cage. So the first thing before that, though, that I want to touch on is the box. So they tend to give you this sort of box that they put them in with some of their old stuffing, which is understandable. But what I've seen people do and what I'm preferring to do this time around is I have my very own carrier. And this can be useful in different circumstances as well, for moving your little guy around or having a safe space for them to be when you're cleaning their cage. So for mine, I got this little guy on Amazon. It originally had a mid part, and it was more fit for the size of a dwarf hamster. So instead, I just took that mid part out and set up a little inside for them myself. So inside, I have a little place for them to hide some food and some water. I imagine they're probably just gonna spend more time hiding, but I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of everything just in case, so it feels like a nice, comfy, safe place to be. This guy has a little handle, and I think is just so cute and super convenient for short periods of time. The second thing that I got ahead of time was different things that they would need. So I made sure to have, or to look into first, the different things that they needed. I realized even with my research before, I didn't always know everything that they needed. And this time I tried to be more thorough in making sure I understood what they need. So I found out that it's not just things like, making sure they have food or water. They also need other things in their diet. So certain things that can be helpful for a hamster that they should have is I got these little minerals. That's good. I was hearing in my research for them, having the minerals as well as chew toys for them in their cages. Also getting something for them to chew on that you can maybe hang, because their teeth are constantly growing. So they need to chew, but they also need other things in their diet, such as minerals and fibers and proteins and things like that. So on the subject of fibers, the next thing I was surprised to find that hamsters needed, not just bunnies or chinchillas, is some hay. So originally it was suggested on one of the videos I saw, I think it's orchard grass hay or something like that. What I got and found out looking it up online is okay for them is also Timothy hay. This is good for fiber, and it's also good for boredom breakers, such as hiding treats in them and making little tunnels for them with the hay and things like that. It'll help with their fiber, it'll help keep them busy, and it is safe for them. The other thing I got, although you can't use it right away, is a little potty. So hamsters can actually be very clean rodents, as they tend to prefer to keep one area for their toilet. They tend to burrow deep, and they tend to have different tunnels, and they will section off a specific tunnel for a toilet. So what was suggested is, originally you won't be able to put this in right away, but to see where they prefer to go, which corner, and then you can start to put in a little potty for them, and you can actually help potty train them by making sure that you clean out their cage but leave little bits of dropping or stuffing that has their scent in this area so that they know where to go. And then hamsters, by nature, tending to prefer to have a clean space, can be trained to go here. So I got a little potty for them. It even comes with a scoop. I don't know how useful that's going to be with little hamster droppings. And I made sure to get some potty litter as well. The next thing I got was a playpen. So it can be helpful to bond with your hamster, to take them out when they're ready and play with them. And in my research, I found that they can forget after as many as just 2 weeks to bond with you and get used to the new normal of being alone. So, but it cannot always be the safest thing to just handle them up high. They always say to handle them low so that they ever crawl or jump or fall. And you want to be able to feel like you're safe with them and in a space where they won't escape or disappear or get hurt. So I went with a playpen. This guy folds out into a decent size that I can even sit in, and I can actually make sure that I can have my little guy with me in hopefully a safe and enclosed space. And then I have an idea of where they're going and what's happening. The other things I had on the way are things for his teeth and boredom breakers. You can go online and buy the same company, Kaytee, or Kaytee, I guess it is. I don't know why I had to pronounce each. Where it is like a little kebab, and you can hang your own things on it, like fresh fruit, chews, things like that, to keep them interested. Little side tips I found along the way of doing my research that might help. In the past, I originally would give my hamsters yogurt drops as treats. They're easy to find, they're marketed, I don't even know what the word is, marketed, I guess, like easily, like grossly, in any pet store really. You can find them, they're one of the first things to pop up for hamster treats, but they are not actually the most healthy choice. This is because they can have too much sugar for what your hamster should actually be intaking. Dwarf hamsters, for instance, can be very prone to diabetes, and they have very fragile systems. You really don't want to give them sugar in this instance. They can't even have fruit. Whereas Syrian hamsters have a better system. They are considered somewhat more hardy, but it doesn't mean that you can't still be careful with them, and you should. So that means less sugar intake. These yogurt droppings, not the best idea. So what I found instead online was not a healthy alternative, just looking up healthy hamster treats. I don't have it yet, but I will pop it up here for you. It is a little tray with different choices for treats. I believe it has rose hips, different, I think, like grass, carrots, things like that. Like I'll put a list. I don't have it in front of me. I should have probably planned that. But it's a healthy option for your hamster to give them treats, to change things up. While hamsters can be given seed diets, they tend to pick out the more fatty or sugarier or not the best for them and just eat their favorites and leave the rest. Which is why it is suggested that sometimes you do a pellet diet, which is kind of like a version of dog kibble where everything's just kind of mushed into one pellet, so it makes sure they have a nice, healthy, balanced diet. But hamsters can get bored of that, just like anybody would get bored of eating the same thing. So it's okay to mix in some seeds and to make sure you have some interesting, healthy treats to keep them engaged with bonding with you, with their diet, and making sure they stay on track. The other thing I've learned recently is that their tanks or their cages should have a certain square footage. This means that most cages that you get at PetSmart that are advertised for hamsters are not usually the amount of space they need. While currently the tank that I have is not big enough, so I would not recommend it. It just happened to be the only one I had before I learned this information. There are different requirements for what's considered the minimum. There are better videos that explain that. But from what I've seen, there should be a sort of minimum requirement that is agreed on in certain like Canadian Society of Hamster Pets or something, where it's about like 620 square footage, but, or not footage, inches. I've apparently lost all ability to speak. Square inches, but it's recommended to go bigger. For me, I'm hoping to go in and get a much larger tank. I tend to find that tanks are the easier way to go, as most of the cages I found that were about the right size tend to be marketed more for chinchillas and rabbits. And while they'll say that it's okay for hamsters, if you check the reviews or answered questions, they tend to tell you that the bars are too far apart and that a hamster may be able to squeeze through them. The other thing I learned about in my research is boredom breakers. In my experience, I'm interested in checking them out. I'm hoping that it keeps my hamster a bit more entertained. Having the proper size cage will assist with them not growing bored and unhappy in their environment. There are different signs to show that they are growing bored in their space. Again, I've taken notes from other people's videos on this. In my experience, rather than just repeating or regurgitating what I've heard, I want to actually make videos and share my experience and how things have worked. So in the future, the plan will be to try some of these boredom breakers myself, and that will probably be a video in itself. I also wanted to look into my first experience getting a hamster again after so long, and having like a Syrian hamster again after so long, and how they're different, and go about paying more attention to all the little details they need and actually filming and enjoying the process and trying to keep a close eye on it. So I want to make more videos on that in the future, and my actual experience going through doing some of these things and how I did them, as I'm still kind of new to it, so I figure that that might be the case for other people as well. I also went over safe foods and not safe foods. I feel like that though is a whole other video in itself, and things that they actually like. So again, I'll probably add that to the list of more detailed videos on those kind of things, so this didn't just kind of run forever. But that is another thing I would recommend looking up before going ahead and feeding your hamster anything. It is easy to make mistakes. The other thing I would say is, again, do your research, find out a little bit more about these little guys. They can be very fascinating. They can surprise you with what they can do, what they're capable of, how they are. The only other tips I'm going to do is I have my stuff ready, my tank ready, my carrier. The only thing they said was to make sure to not immediately handle your hamster, to try and get them used to your hand first. And on the first day, I saw a recommendation to allow them to be in their tank and quiet, and even maybe put a cloth over top so they feel, safe in their own little private space. And then you can start introducing your voice and getting used to you being around, and then your hand. But again, I think I'll go more into that later. This is more sort of the things I got ahead of time and some of the quick things I learned before getting the hamster, so that I was prepared and didn't make any mistakes even right on day one. So if you saw through all of this, thank you so much for watching. I hope maybe it helped you. Maybe it was a quick little idea of some of the things you can do. If you don't want to go ahead and read all the research, that's totally fair. It can be time consuming, and some people prefer to learn visually. I tend to usually be that kind of person. So I'm hoping to release a few more videos on just, doing a quick summary of things like safe foods or boredom breakers, so they're quick, digestible videos on how to prepare for your hamster and my experience with them. Today's the day we head out and get a hamster.
Call them runt?
Runts.
Those runts?
Oh yeah. No, it's going to be Razzles. One more thing I nearly forgot to include. A good point is to remember to thoroughly clean any supplies or cages that you place your hamster in, especially if you had a hamster living and using in the space and using things that this new hamster is going to use. It's very good to disinfect everything just in case there's anything that could be passed on that might upset your next hamster or the unfamiliar smells. Very important point, if it's a new cage, I still clean them. If it's a cage you're going to reuse or any toys or anything like that, either disinfect them safely or just toss things out. Things I found work was just plain old soap and water, but I also found little wipes that are animal safe that I use to help with some of the cleanup. The wipes I've currently been using are the Nature's Miracle. They also have a spray bottle. I found the wipes were great as you can just pull one out and wipe things down.